Well,
Kids.
nice. All right. Welcome to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. Thanks for tuning in. Heidi, Taylor, we got a few messages. People are going to be a little bit late tonight. It's all good. Happy to have you. It's Thanksgiving week. I'm excited about that. I'm actually leaving town in the morning to take the family Lake Havasu via Williams, Arizona, which is the portal to the Grand Canyon, but they do the Polar Express there on the Grand Canyon train. And if you've never been, it's awesome for adults and kids. So looking forward to that. I bring that up because this is me living my values and incorporating that into my work life and all the other things, to make it all cohesive and with priority. So hopefully everybody else is doing the same for this holiday week and these coming months. I want to share a little story, and I've already shared it with Heidi, but I want to share a little story about Heidi's son. This is how much I know about football. Heidi's got a shirt on tonight that says beat, what does it say? Beat Navy.
Beat Navy.
Okay, besides beat Navy, you got it all, right? Besides that, once in a while I'll see on her Instagram reel that she's going out to watch her son play football. That's about how much I watch football on TV. It's just not something I've ever done. I'm not against it. I do like a good Super Bowl party because it's an excuse to eat a whole bunch of junk food. But and actually, Heidi, I might go to the Super Bowl this year. I just got invited today. So my point is, I want to tell a story briefly about Heidi and her son. And so last night I was at a gathering with all my neighbors. And, if the guys aren't talking about hunting, which unfortunately I don't do that either, they're talking about ball games, football, baseball, basketball, whatever. And I was talking across the room. And I heard a couple of the guys talking about the football game. And it was Army versus Notre Dame, right? So my ears perk up because I know Heidi's son plays for the Army, and they're just bragging on this guy, just bragging. Like, oh, they're quoting all the stats, and one guy's giving some stats, and the other guy's giving the stats that he didn't know, back and forth, ping ponging. And I had a feeling that they were talking about your son, Heidi.
Yeah.
But they were just all these different things. Finally, I said, "What's the kid's name?" And they're like, "Rendina." I'm like, "Oh, that's Heidi's son." And then once they realized that I knew your son, then they started bragging about his smart decision, to take the scholarship. And he probably could have played at all these other places and all these other offers. I don't know how they know all this shit, right? But they just knew his whole life. And, what a study is and his high school stats and all these things. And I was just so proud for you as the parent to hear them talking about your son. And it's just an all around success. So congratulations to you and your husband for being the parents that you are. Congratulations to your son for being the athlete that he is, the decisions that he's made for the right reasons and all the above. And it just shows and proves, that being a good parent works, being involved in your kid's life works, and being a kid, with goals and ambitions also work. So I'm super excited about all of that. And Heidi, it was really a pleasure to hear that conversation going on across the room. Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
So you're welcome. Like I said, I was super proud to know you in that very moment, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the topic tonight is influence people to act. And I do have some bullet points as it relates to that. And oftentimes I think, this is off my own script, I was just thinking about this. Oftentimes I think that people need to be inspired to act. And, this topic can be broad or it can be narrow. So I'm going to hone in on something specific. I was in North Dakota. If you listen to my podcast show with Rod, once in a while I'll have an outside guest, which is how the podcast started. It's got a different logo on it. It says the answer is yes. Well, this week I interviewed Silas Sneed, who owns X Golf. And Silas has actually been a private coaching client of mine for about 4 months now. And Silas has a great backstory. Speaking of football, he played level 1 college ball until he got injured. And he actually played level 1 college ball, and then he went on to play arena football and then got injured in some NFL tryouts. So that's how far he made it. But anyways, Silas has 2 successful ex-golf franchises, and he's got good people that work there. And so we're looking at elevating his standards of operation and really putting some good SOPs in place for his businesses so that we can look at growth models where he might buy, 2 or more franchises in the near future in 2025. And I started talking about his history and, how much his employees know about him and where he's been. He's like, well, I don't think they know anything about me, Jim. I said, really? And so while I was in North Dakota, I had both managers. I said, do you guys know why Silas owns X Golf? And they're like, no, that's interesting. No, we have no idea. So I said, Silas, please tell them your story on why you own these X Golfs. And to summarize it, you can listen to the show because he talks about it. But to summarize it, he was in the corporate world, realized he didn't want to be there anymore, started his own business doing the same thing that he was doing in the corporate world, had a whole bunch of success within his own business, which is a placement agency in the oil and gas industry. And so then he bought another one and had tons of success, but realized he was just doing more of what he was doing before, but for himself. And that wasn't very exciting. And so he was looking for something that filled his passion and really allowed him to be closer to home, which at the time is in Minot, North Dakota. And he wrote a business plan to start an indoor golf type facility, selling used golf clubs and all these other things, and then gravitated towards buying X Golf franchises, right? So the point of all this is his employees didn't know his story and why he owns the business. And I watched these managers that have been there for a while. I watched the look on their face as Silas described his story of one transition to the next, and ultimately why he bought X Golf and what X Golf means to him. And all of a sudden, like, wow, I had no idea. All of a sudden, as we start to build in new standards for the team, new standards for the employees, for our drinks, for our food costs, labor costs, drink pour costs, all these things, these managers understand the why behind all of that. And that goes into tonight's topic, influencing people to take action, right? The influence in this case is them buying into his story and the reason why he owns these businesses. All of a sudden, they've got some passion behind that. They get to rally around his story and his why, and they're going to act in the way that he wants them to, which is, again, increasing the level of standards for their restaurants. So that was a nice lead-in story for this, and that's the approach that I want to take on some of our topics tonight. It just occurred to me, one of the stories that I told them in this meeting, why it was important to understand the whys. Okay, I'm going to give you another why. I like to use In-N-Out Burger as my reference point a lot of times. And if you've traveled to In-N-Outs, you know that it has a drive-through component. Now, one of the things about In-N-Out is that their claim to fame is that they were one of the first drive-throughs in the state of California, launching in 1948. And the owners of In-N-Out at the time, Harry Snyder and his business partner, they owned a meat processing facility in the city of Baldwin Park. Okay. And so they brought the cows in, processed, cutting up steaks, burger, and all that other stuff. And they thought, hey, we've got great product here. We should make hamburgers and sell them on the corner of our lot in that little square building we got out there. And because it was off a freeway, they thought, well, if people can get off the freeway and drive through, they wouldn't even have to get out of their cars. We can sell them a hamburger, then they get back on the freeway. And that's really kind of how In-N-Out started and became the first drive-through in the state of California, which could be the first drive-through in general. Now, one of the things that Harry Snyder did in the process of starting this is he really thought about customer service and quality. So first thing he wanted is clean bathrooms. He thought, hey, if you're working, you're on the freeway, you get off to get a burger, wouldn't it be nice to have a nice clean bathroom to wash up or utilize the bathroom, not have to worry about if it's nice or not, right? So one of their standards was to have clean bathrooms. Another one of their standards were to be considerate of the person in the car. Think about 1948, okay? Most of the time, men were the ones working, and men usually wore a suit and tie to work at the time. And I would imagine, based on this location, most of these people worked in downtown LA. So the last thing you want to do is grab a juicy, dripping, greasy burger and get that all over your suit. So if you were going to eat in your car, he gave you a box, basically a tray with your burger and fries and whatever you ordered in that. And before that, you got what they called a lap mat. And that is a piece of paper that goes on your lap, and you put the box on it. It doesn't soil your suit. And you got a napkin per item that you had in your order, right? So he was thinking about the customer and making sure that they can enjoy their food and they had as much protection as they possibly could to eat in their car. Well, a few years after they established the business and some of these standards, Harry Snyder's partner said, hey, look, all this crap that you're doing with the boxes and the lap mat and the napkins, that's costing us a lot of money. We shouldn't do that. And Harry said, no, we're going to do that. That's our standard. Well, it really caused a rift between the two of them. They broke up basically and went their separate ways. They divided the stores up. One guy took, half it, Harry took the other half, and then they went about their merry way. Within 5 short years, Harry's partner was out of business, and Harry was actually flourishing in the stores that he kept, and he continued to grow from 1948 until the mid or early 80s, I would say. He had 32 locations by the early 80s, okay? All because of his standards with customer service and willing to do all these little things. By the way, if I go to an In-N-Out right now, knowing that story and knowing the why, and they don't offer me one of those lap papers, I'm instantly irritated. Like, didn't somebody tell you the story on how important that is? I used to teach their history classes at In-N-Out, and this is what everybody that was in management got the same story, basically a version of what I just told you. And the importance of that is we wanted to influence people to act in a way that was consistent with the values of the company and the reasons why we did things, dating all the way back to 1948. And that's why they have the success that they have, right? So again, going along with this topic is that we're influencing people by giving them more dialogue and history behind the ways that we're doing things so that they can act in a way that's not only appropriate, but maybe they can act in a way with passion and integrity and willingness and desire to do those things because you've given them the whole picture, right? And so now I guarantee you when a car pulls up and an employee goes to ask them, hey, do you want a lap paper? He's looking at them going, I bet they don't want to soil their pants or their jeans or their dress or whatever, or the kids in the back, they know the why. It's not just a piece of paper that they're handing out the window. There's a why behind that piece of paper with, by the way, 75 years of history. So pretty cool. Think about your influence in your businesses. And if you don't have enough content to have that influence or the story, then seek to achieve that or create that. With Silas, he told his story for the first time with his employees. He told it again on the podcast. And I said, okay, good job. Now let's refine that so that when we tell your employees in the future, as we expand your company, that all your managers will get the same story, the same why, with passion and understanding so that they can go do their job and they can act in a way that you want them to, right? So that's the importance of influencing people to take action, okay? And that's my version. I've got some other bullet points on what that might look like and ways that you kind of grow off of it. So 5 bullet points, take notes if you want. The first one is build trust and credibility, okay? Establish yourself as a reliable resource of information. And this is what I'm talking about. Share your story, your expertise, your credentials, your why, In this case, the case I've told you really are about experiences and changing that, right? Building trust and credibility, because if people can trust you, then they're going to act, right? And sometimes that trust and credibility comes from the way that you've treated them, right? With respect or with honesty. Rod and I just did a podcast about your word is your bond, things like that. So if you can build trust and credibility with your people, that will influence them to take action. All right. Step number 2, use persuasive communication. And I say that in a positive way, not like you're, somebody's adamant about doing something for you, but in a persuasive way, in a positive manner, right? So what I wrote here was tailor your message to resonate with your audience, utilizing storytelling, which I've done 2 of, and that's why. Emotional appeals, I've also done a little bit of that, and clear, concise language. And I think, going back to these stories that I told, if you can be clear in your story, that's why I went back to Silas and say, okay, let's make sure that your story is clear, right? That way your communication can be more persuasive. And really what happens is they hear those stories, they persuade themselves to take action because it's resonated with them, right? So now they're doing the work for you because you've done a good job communicating your why and how. All right. Okay, number 3, my favorite, create a sense of urgency. Create a sense of urgency. My notes are encouraging action by emphasizing time-sensitive offers or opportunities, use deadlines, limited quantities, or again, my favorite, FOMO, fear of missing out, to get people to act quickly. It is okay to create FOMO or create excitement that generates a sense of urgency. I'm raising some capital right now for my new partner, Kyle Turley, out in Tennessee. We're creating a franchise operation for him. And within the capital raise, we already know in advance, we're doing 3 rounds of capital raise. The first capital raise was for $100,000. We've already closed it out, so I can talk about it. But it was limited capital raise phase 1. We were looking for one person, $100,000. That's it. Offer closes and they got the best deal, right? So what we did is we created a sense of urgency in that, like this goes till December 15th. You get in, we only want one person, or you're not in at all, and round 2 is going to be different terms. It's not going to be as good. Took one phone call. First person we called, the way we laid it up, said yes. And we already had a little bit of an indication, their net worth and their ability to hit the target. We did our research, right? But we created a sense of urgency in our communications with this person so that we can get through that and get into phase 2, which will be a different offering. And then phase 3 will be different than that. Within each one of the phases, though, we will create that sense of urgency so that we can get people to act quickly, right? That way we're hitting our goals sooner, and then we can utilize and put that capital to work sooner. And by the way, that's exactly what happened with this round 1. Took a total of 5 business days from the day that I signed on with Kyle to actually the funding this morning via wire, right? But I understood my first conversation with Kyle, what his needs were, how much he needed, where it was going. We had a lot of dialogue that day, and then I created the letter of offer, and I talked to Kyle about having a sense of urgency, right? And that FOMO. So it'll be fun for you all to watch how this thing unfolds. I'll give you more details later, but creating a sense of urgency. All right, number 4. I also like this one. Leverage social proof. Leverage social proof. Let me explain what that means. Showing that others have already taken the desired action and seen the rewards of that. Okay. Testimonials, case studies. There's all kinds of ways that you can talk about that. In my case with Rod, we might utilize the podcast, we might utilize a blog, the website, but demonstrate to others, that others could have benefited from this action, right? So you need to look in your own worlds and what that might look like. Take this group, for example, right? We've got Taylor's on the call tonight. We've watched her start her business from an idea all the way to having some really, really important meetings that can change the entire trajectory of her business and her life, right? In a short amount of time. I don't know, Rod, do you know how long Taylor, when she started that business? I know she's doing the mom role, so I'm trying to avoid calling her out on that. She might know that.
I think it's been just 1 year because she actually did a setup last summer. So she's just literally over 1 year.
Okay. Over time, about a year, right?
Yeah, just about a year.
So what she's doing is building out, she's used what she's learned in this group on top of the things that she's known and willing to do. But this is a way that we can communicate leveraging social proof. And of course, Taylor's that social proof for us. Say, hey, look, here's a person that went from here to here in 1 year's time. She put the concepts to work and now she's off and running. So in your case, you need to look at what that might look like to you and how you leverage your own social proof. All right, number 5, the last one on this is incentivize action. Okay, and there's a lot of ways you can do that, right? So what I wrote here was offering rewards, incentives for taking action, but it can be in the form of a lot of things: discounts, bonuses, other benefits, time off, but ensuring that the incentives align with the interests and motivation of your audience, right? So you don't want to offer something that there's no incentive there. And that's not always money, by the way. Sometimes it's just freedom, flexibility, time off. Maybe sometimes it's autonomy to do the job the way that they would like to be doing it. So you have to consider what that incentivized action looks like and work off of that. Okay. But I don't want to say it's a critical component, but it's really important. Sometimes that incentive could just be recognition amongst your peers. So understand what your environment looks like and how you're going to do that. But if you take these 5 principles and you work them together, some maybe more than others, you're going to see the results of getting people to act through your influence to get the job done, right? And that is what makes it exciting and keeps that pendulum moving. So let's do this. Rod, I'll let you weigh in, and then if Jim or Taylor or Heidi have anything they want to throw in, I'd love to hear from you guys. If not, I'll just talk about a couple top line things and we'll wrap it up in a little bit. We got a holiday week. I've got a couple reminders for that as well. So Rod, go ahead.
Thanks, Jim. But before you got started tonight, I looked at the topic and I write these on my notes, the heading of the topic. It's got the date, the heading, influence people to act, Jim Riley, right? And I thought, I wonder what Jim's going to talk about. So before you got started, I wrote down my 3 things just off the top of my head. I said, if I were doing this tonight, this is what I would talk about. And the first thing I wrote down was inspire.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing I wrote down was educate. And the third thing I wrote down was motivate. And you've covered all 3 of those in your 5 points. And I have off to the side of that a big thing that says, why?
Yeah.
Why? Right? Because all 3 of those have to get back to the why. And then I summed it up with inspire, you can do it. Educate, you should do it, right? All the reasons why you should. And then motivate. You'll regret it if you don't do it. And that's where your FOMO comes in, right?
Yeah.
And if we can just keep that in mind, from our customers' point of view, from our employer's point of view, we're all trying to influence people to act. It doesn't matter whether we're a leader, a manager, a customer. If we're a customer and we want to go in and get a refund or we're having a bad thing, you're still trying to influence people to act. If you want to have less hours and work from home and a raise all on top of it and a company car and a company credit card, you're still going to try and influence people to act. And so the principles are the same. It's all the same. It's just a matter of what we talked about earlier today, Jim, practice.
Mm-hmm.
Those micro movements, just practice. And if you start doing all these little things with intention, we all do it automatically anyway. But if we start doing it with intention, we watch it elevate. It gives us a little bit more reaction. And so that's all I'm going to say about your topic. It was a great topic. You really handled it well. And the next thing I want to say is to Heidi, again, a shout out to you and your son. But what the conversation that Jim overheard was probably just one of a dozen or more of those conversations happening all over. Yeah, you think about that on the scale. Jim happened to be in a room that happened to be talking about that, but that's happening all over. And that's how our businesses work. Somebody's talking about your business, probably right now. They've just read a post. They've just read, or watched an Instagram reel. and they're talking about your business right now, and that's happening all over the place, right? So don't underestimate the power of your influence on getting people to act. So I'll wrap
Such a
it up
great,
there. Thanks.
such a great
Great
point,
topic.
Rod. You know, and just to touch on that, I don't think I'll assume, probably safe to assume this one, that when Heidi was raising her son and he was making decisions about where he's going to play ball at, and then actually to this day, they probably weren't thinking, gosh, people are going to be saying great things about us, you know, over on Morning View Way at 8 o'clock at night, because, you know, we've done all these things. But the influence in which you created, just like you referred to on your business, the influence that you created has people acting. And in this case, talking positively in support of the decisions that your son is making based on how he was raised and the direction that he was given. And, you know, Rod, to your point, the things that we do in business, how we set up our business, or in many people's cases, how we're entrepreneurs in somebody else's business, sets us up for success and that ongoing trajectory and what that'll look like. And, you know, at some point or another, you're going to need to influence people to act on things, right? So I love the topic. I want to give a few reminders and some grace, because I think sometimes, you know, if we fail to launch on something, we immediately feel like, Taylor, I'll come to you in a second. We feel like we're a failure. And I just want you to know, if you haven't done something that you've been meaning to do, it's not too late. I'm going to touch on that in a second, but let's let Taylor go, because I know she's running her house over there. So Taylor, go ahead and unmute and let's see your face if you're up for it.
Howdy, everybody.
Howdy.
I loved the topic. Jim, thank you so much. It was so motivational for me where I'm at with my business right now. So I appreciate that. Also, Heidi, I don't know if you can hear us right now, but I was like tearing up, borderline, just thinking about, I can only imagine what it will be like to see the fruits of my labor as a parent one day. So anyway, thank you for your service, and thank your son just for being bold and being awesome. Okay, so I have an unrelated question about, I need some perspective, and maybe it's more of a phone call question, but I'll shoot it out there anyway, on ROI, because I've had several, earlier on in our business, so last year, I had several entities and people reach out because, you know, there's various events throughout the year and they want us to donate some of our product so that, you know, because we get visibility, that's usually how it's presented. And obviously it will help somebody. And I don't think that we've done that numerous times. And I love to do it. Honestly, I would just give everything away, but I know that I have to be a smart businesswoman. So I haven't seen any return on investment in that. I haven't seen like an uptick in people following us on social media. I haven't had people reach out. I just am wondering like what your professional thoughts are about product donation, and kind of how to, I guess, weed out when it's a good idea and when I should pass on that.
Okay.
Or questions that I should ask.
So it's a great question. I'll answer it in detail. I'm an expert at this, of all things. Rod, if you feel like you need to weigh in, go ahead, or maybe a separate phone call. When I was at Kettle One Vodka, at a $2.5 million budget for giving stuff away. All right. And basically the way that we did that was through charity events, because legally you can donate alcohol to help facilitate the fundraising needs of those charities. That was a legal way to donate alcohol. You couldn't donate it to a restaurant because they benefit from it because they're a restaurant. So in your case, you've got a lot of people reaching out. So let me first say this. Once people realize, people meaning other industries, once they realize you're willing to give something away, you're going to get every call. I literally had a person dedicated 5 days a week, year round, to receiving those calls, giving them a form that they could fill out, getting the form back, making sure the details were there. And then I held a once a week meeting to go through all that to decide who we were going to work with. There will be no shortage of people asking you for free stuff to support their event. Okay, just know that. And by the way, every one of those people has the best event ever. You can't miss it. And we're giving you a great deal. All you got to do is donate 2 of your $80 bags, right? Well, 2 of your $80 bags cost you real money. It comes out of your real pocket. Okay. And they're all the best event ever. And you know what? They probably are in their world. Okay. They probably are, but that might not be your world. So, and by the way, we did every big movie premiere, every gala, every fashion show, all that stuff. We did a lot of great stuff. And we really couldn't measure those results. Who's to say you've got 500 people with a mix of celebrities and their managers and publicists and guests and all that? Who's to say any one of those people were going to go buy a bottle of Kettle One the next day? You can't measure it, right? But what you can do over time is know that you're increasing your visibility and your brand. Okay, so that's going to take me to phase 2. When you do things like that, what is your call to action? Okay, what is your call to action? That's a marketing term to say, if I'm going to give you this, what are you hoping to get back? Okay, so that when people are having the benefit of your item, the call to action could be, go to my website. I want an email. Anybody that's going to put their name in the raffle, I want an email address. I want a phone number. I want to be on all your printed materials that go out the month in advance. I want my logo there. All these things need to be a part of your call to action so that when you do donate that, you realize, okay, I'm getting that. And a bonus might be I'll get some more customers. Okay. Right now, in my opinion, email addresses are solid gold right now. So if I'm going to do stuff, I'm going to want email addresses. So, go to the charity and say, yeah, I'm willing to donate this, but I want you to include me in your email correspondence, or I want a special email to say I'm involved with my website and I'm going to offer a 10% discount to everybody on your email list. Now all of a sudden you're bringing people to your website, right? So that's part 2. Make sure you have a call to action for your donation. Part 3, and this could be the most important part, in my opinion. You need to have a budget for your business. Okay, we've talked about that. You have to have a budget for your business. Marketing is a line item in your budget. Okay, and so each month you should know how much you can afford to spend in marketing based on sales and forecasts and investment, all these things. So when somebody calls and says, hey, Taylor, I got the best event ever in January. Can you donate 4 clutches, and we're going to give you all these things, and you know what your call to action items are, and you're like, okay, I really want to do it. And you look at your budget and say, shoot, I only budgeted 1 purse to be donated in January. Then you have to decide, okay, am I going to go over budget? Am I going to take budget from February to do this best event ever, right? How is that going to fit into your budget? Because what happens, and maybe you've already experienced this while you're asking the question, is that you have organically donated items with the best intentions. You didn't take it out of a line item called marketing, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I bet I've given away a lot of purses that have cost me real dollars. How much does that look like? And all of a sudden you add it all up, you're like, wow, I've given away $5,000 in purses in the last year. My cost, which is $10,000, retail. I got to figure this out. So please have a budget. Now, part of that budget, I said was a marketing line item. Okay. You better know an extension of that budget is what activity within that marketing category are you doing? And does it align with your overall business plan and goals? Okay, so, and this, Heidi, this is great for you too as well, by the way, because I'm sure people ask, are you give away your personal training time, which is a block of time that has a true value to that. Okay, so every hour you give away a free training, you better log that as a marketing hour as a loss, right? Run it back against your line item there because you've lost that hour in revenue. But your giveaways in marketing better align with your marketing plan. So a simple way to look at that is, you're part of, you sell your purses at Shield Arms. So let's just say Shield Arms came to you in January, say, hey, can you donate 2 bags? This is your customer database. You already know in your mind, yeah, those are my customers. Okay. But when the zoo, I think we have a zoo here in Montana, when the zoo asks you to donate bags, you're going, wait a minute. I don't really think that those are my customers. They probably lean this way. You know, even though it's the best zoo event ever, why would I donate to them? Right. So now you have a real black and white. This aligns, this doesn't. I don't care how good that event is. And I know my friend runs the zoo. And by the way, that's a good point. Sometimes your friend is asking for a donation and it's hard to tell them no, but if you know why you're telling them no, they should accept that if they're your friend. Say, look, sorry, I know you're on the board of the zoo, but it doesn't fit our marketing scheme and plan and our target audience. So, you know, tell you what, I'll try to attend your event personally and support you personally, but my brand doesn't resonate with the zoo audience, right? So now you've already have baked into the deal a reason why you would do something and not do something, okay? Really good question, complex answer, but it happens a lot when you have product kit to give away. And you better give it away with intent and purpose that matches your business plan. Cool?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I loved everything. I took notes.
Okay, good. All right. That's the simple of it. Okay. Jim, question, thoughts, go for it.
No questions. I actually have something to build on that for Taylor.
Oh, good.
Thinking about those events, I think you could put a note inside each bag you donate that says something like, we're delighted to donate to whatever event it is, which is such a great cause. It'd mean the world to us if you could leave a review on our product to your favorite social media channel. You could provide QR codes to get them links to Facebook page or Google reviews or something. And you could even go as far if you wanted, drop a few stickers in and maybe a handful of business cards and say, you know, if anyone asks, here's a card, here's where you can get a bag for yourself. Or if they know of any local businesses to hand out to.
Yeah.
So use that as its own marketing tool.
Great response, Jim. By the way, Taylor, in the alcohol industry, a lot of times you've all seen and heard of those airplane bottles, those little mini bottles. A lot of times we'd give those away because they just wanted to fill gift bags. We wouldn't give them a 750 milliliter, right? Plunk. We give them little airplane bottles. You may, depending on what your marketing plan is, maybe you want to do a little keychain, right? A little keychain made with leather, but you're not sure to test it. You make $1 keychains, your cost, that you give away as part of your brand, church and state, right? And it has the information Jim just said to drive them back to your site for the bigger stuff. So a lot of ways to skin that cat. It all comes back to a marketing budget and why you're utilizing that. And even if it is a $1 keychain or something else, it should still align with your target demographic. Okay. Rod?
Yeah, real quick. I agree 100% with everything you said, and especially the budgeting part, because the budgeting part, even if you've got somebody that's questionable, sometimes you need an out. Sometimes you need an out to be able to say no, and having it in your budget. And I can tell you, working retail, I worked retail for 10 years, and people coming in off the streets, everybody was our customer. And so they all, you know how many Boy Scout and Girl Scout cookies came in? So you literally would say, and our thing was, we had a budget. And I told them, people who would come in, I'd say, you can leave me the information, but we budget a year in advance for our donations and charities. And so if it doesn't work out this year, I will keep you in mind for next year, and we can do it then. So it leaves you an out that doesn't like close that door and make them feel bad. But you're saying, look, the business has a budget and we do this. My husband and I sit down and we talk about what we're going to budget, and we do that a year in advance. And unfortunately, the budget is gone by March most years. And ours was,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah.
even if it was allocated for fall, it was done. So give yourself an out and give yourself permission to say no.
Yep.
And that does it. So
Yeah. And the other side of what Rod is saying as well, everybody's a potential customer. And we knew that in my world, that's why I had a person dedicated to responding to every person that reached out to you. The response always started with a thank you for considering including us in your great event. If, you know, and a few niceties, and then the turn down, if that's what the letter was all about, because they are all potential customers. And if you do relate it back to a budget and time frame, it does allow them, and I always said this, please reach out to us next year as things change on our end. We might have a different target audience, and we'll also hang on to your information, right? And so for you, that gives you another database to pull from, another contact, another customer, right? So really good point. By the way, this second half of this call is as important, if not more, than the first half of this call. So I love good questions. So thank you for that tonight, Taylor. And that's why we're always encouraging you, hey, bring questions to the call, because this does not often get discussed. And most of us have our own businesses, or we represent a business where you've got budgets and people want stuff, right? So really appreciate that question. All right, I'm going to wrap up with a couple things, which is, I started to say before we opened that door for Taylor, which I'm so glad we did, is it's not too late to start. Okay, we're coming into December. If you haven't formulated what next year looks like for you, if you haven't started to develop your goals and all those other things, don't get down on that. Just get after it. Start tomorrow, start tonight, start working your plan. I've said it a lot. Rod and I just recorded some podcasts about this, and that's how I believe you will see the results of everything you start today within 90 days, right? So we're well past that 90-day mark. If you're hoping to see something hit in January, doesn't mean it won't hit, but nothing's going to hit unless you start now. And if you haven't started, I would encourage you to do so. Don't get frustrated or already feel like you're behind the 8 ball. You know, they're sending out Black Friday stuff 3 weeks ago, and Christmas stuff's been out. Like, that's retail's time frame. You have your own time frame. It's never too late to start, but build a plan, build your goals for next year. I just was telling Rod on our podcast, I can't wait to see what this group does in 2025. And furthermore, I'm inspired by these calls and watching what you're all doing to elevate what I'm doing. So I kind of build off that excitement in my own world to do more. The other thing that came to mind, and this doesn't fit everybody, but maybe it does. Sometimes as we get later in life, we feel like, I missed out on opportunities. It's too late to start. Gary Vaynerchuk, if you follow him at all, he's a marketing guru out of New Jersey. He talks about, I'm going to interview and try to hire any 6-year-old that comes into my office because I know they have a lifetime of experience to offer me, you know, and I love that mentality. You know, Rod's, he gets his workout at the UPS facility. I know that they're getting more out of Rod than they're going to get out of anybody else in that location. We've shared stories, and I believe that Rod's a tremendous value to them. And I'm looking at myself in this equation too. Although I have a very successful consulting business, oftentimes more than what I deserve, I feel like I've been very blessed. And now I'm starting this real estate career as an addition to what I'm doing. And in a short period of time, I've already had some successes. And I'm thinking to myself during this call, like, wow, I started this when I'm 56. I'll be 57 in January. And I can already see how this thing pans out. And I think the neat part about that is if we're worried about starting too late in life on something, it's never too late is my point, right? I've got my example. I gave you one on rods and including an industry icon like Gary. It's never too late to start, but just start and have confidence in your own ability to do those things. So with that, I want to wish everybody an awesome holiday week. I'm available if you need to call. I'd be on the road, but happy to get your calls. We'll be back next week. Rod and I have ramped up the podcast again. So if you haven't listened to the show, please listen to it. Give us a like, share it. Let's ramp those numbers back up. We're having some fun discussions, really kind of an extension of this. Taylor, go ahead again before I wrap it up.
Oh, just saying that the podcast is so good. Thank you guys for starting it up again.
Yeah, you guilted us. Well,
I'm not sorry.
Thank you. You and several others have brought it up the last few months, but when I saw you at the show and Rod was there, I committed that we would have a show out that Thursday, and we did. I had it out that night. So we're back in the game. So anyways, Heidi, any closing thoughts? You're here. We heard from Jim.
No, this was fantastic. Thank you so much. It was awesome.
Okay. Well, we love doing this. Love you guys. We just want you to have a great holiday, succeed in business. Actually, I'm going to say one more thing. Jim, thank you for the call earlier this week and our brief discussion. And also, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but you had shared with me how grateful you were for this community. And that means the world to me. I called Rod earlier today. We were talking about that. If we can do something for only one person, it's worth it, right? And we know we have a community of people, but hearing it from you the other day meant the world to me. So thank you for that. We're going to keep doing what we're doing, keep delivering wherever we can. You guys just keep showing up when you can. No obligation. Just show up when you can. Okay. All right. Talk to everybody. Bye-bye. Have a great week.